Good morning. This is Katherine Watson here with the Life After 50 show. And I'm here today with Harsh Malini, and we're going to get to him in just a minute. But we've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about neuroscience and technology and how it can help us to age more gracefully. So I'm happy to bring Harsh on, and I'm going to let him just kind of take it away and tell us who he is, what his background is, and what he's doing right now, and why this is such an important topic to him. Harsh, if you will, just tell us a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you. So thank you so much, Catherine. I am very pleased to be here with you just because I've been keeping up with the Life After 50 show for quite a bit now, and so I'm excited to be here. I am a recent graduate from Washington University in St. Louis, where I got my BA in neuroscience. I've always kind of had a fascination with science, and while I was there, I started working with older adult populations and even started out in a hospice setting. And it was so fascinating just to be able to talk to these people who are kind of isolated from the rest of society just because they are in this final stage of their life. But whenever I started talking to them, they had this huge jump in their eyes to be a part of their community. And so I got really passionate about aging and just kind of a lot of the challenges that come with elder care. And so with that, I started working with a bunch of different organizations just to get my feet wet, really understand what it means to work in this sphere. So after getting some experience within policy, different organizations, I actually took two main steps. One was I started a nonprofit called Create Circles, where we look to pair students and older adults to work on projects in order to help create a sense of purpose. And this is more to address a lot of the loneliness that exists for older adult populations. And then two, I actually started working with Brio Care, which is a voice technology startup, which is looking to help families and caregivers better connect, care for, and engage their loved ones as they age through voice technology.
Super. And I just put the names of those two organizations on there, Create Circles and Brio Care. And towards the end of the presentation, if you have a website that you want to direct them to, we'll get that information and put it up as well.
Sounds good.
So neuroscience and technology, that is something that really speaks to me, Harsh. I see technology, it's already made a huge difference. And I think because of the current situation we're in with COVID-19, we've taken a leap with using technology. People have been kind of on the fence. Yeah, it's good. I want to use it, but they kind of were on the fence and they weren't using it as much as people are now. Everybody's doing video calls, right? From the 99-year-old grandma in the residential care home to the young person, everybody's doing video calls now, and it's made a big difference. I know a few years ago with my own mother-in-law, when I brought her a laptop and I pulled her brother up on the screen and they could talk, the amazement that she could talk to him in real time was just, it was just so fun to see that. And so it's really good to see that people are using that technology. What else do you see on the horizon that might be coming up, and how might it really change the way people are aging?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a really fascinating question and something that I spend a lot of time thinking about because, for example, my father is a physician. And so many times he'll talk about how most of his population are kind of older adults. And so he says that it's really interesting making the shift to telehealth because many of these people, they really look forward to actually seeing their doctor. And because over years, you kind of build this level of trust, rapport. It's a really unique connection to have. And so whenever you're not having these visits in person, it's been a very different feeling. Mm-hmm. And so there's that component, but also there's a wide population that's looking to move towards asynchronous healthcare. And so asynchronous healthcare is the idea of you don't necessarily have to go into the doctor's office to get checked up periodically, but because you have your blood pressure cuff, you have different small measures in your house, small bits of technology that let you do small blood tests at home, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Physicians can just periodically check in on how their patient is doing, because a lot of times if patients are doing well, then technically the visit is not fully necessary. And so there's actually a huge shift towards this population of pushing towards asynchronous healthcare, where you're able to not have to see a doctor unless if you actually need immediate care. So I think that's something that's definitely on the horizon.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's amazing how people are shifting towards that. They're more accepting of the telehealth. That's one of those things that's been kind of on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
It's there, it's been there for a long time, but people were, I'm not sure about that. Well, now we're really sure about that, because nobody wants to go sit in a doctor's office right now.
Right.
You know, that's the last place you want to be unless you have to. And in Houston, where I live, it's a huge city. And if I have to go down to the med center to see a doctor, that's a half a day, trip. By the time I drive down there, get parked, get into the place, see the doctor, get back, I've spent a half a day. So it's a big time suck for a lot of people. And so that's another big plus. Plus, I would imagine, if I needed to see a doctor in Boston, wow, with telehealth, I can do that. So that's a big plus. Do you think people, you were talking about how your dad said that a lot of them wanted to come in to see the doctor, and it's that social connection.
Right.
How is this going to be going forward with people? Because we are social animals.
Yeah.
Are we going to get what we need from a video call?
Absolutely. And so I think one of my favorite lines ever was by this professor who was talking about how, as social creatures, our goal is not to be independent, but rather to be someone that others can depend on. And I think I literally think about this statement every single day, because it has this feeling of questioning everything that we know, because a lot of times we have this feeling of, oh, we don't want to have to rely on others, but we do feel immense fulfillment whenever others can rely on us. And so how do we build this vulnerability through technology, I think, is one of the biggest questions that we will ever face, because as you were kind of hinting, can technology be a replacement for a lot of the social connection / actually be enough? And I personally don't think it can. Even though a lot of the work that I do is with technology and kind of using it to help older adults live lives on their own terms, I think it's really one of those supplemental things, one of those things that augments how we live our lives rather than replaces it. And so I think the goal is to really build and use technology as a safety net. I was looking at a company that has this belt that you just wear around your hip, and it can sense if you're falling. And so if you're falling, it will basically make an airbag for your hip so that older adults don't break their hips from falling, which everyone knows is a huge challenge. And so I think it's these small little things that may not be changing the way that we interact with one another that technology can kind of play a role in.
I totally agree with you. I mean, we can't compete with social interaction and connection, especially with our loved ones. But if my daughter or my son lives many, many miles away and I can't see them all the time, wow, how wonderful it is that I can still connect with them. Myself, I'll talk about myself. I have grandchildren that live 12 hours away from me. I don't get to see them that often. And of course, because of all this COVID-19 stuff, it's been even longer since I've seen them. But with technology, 3 times a week, I do story time with them on the phone. and we have a great time. We spend about an hour. I tell them stories, and then we just chat about what's going on in their lives. And
Right.
it's really helped us to develop a much stronger connection than had I not been able to, or had I only had a telephone and I couldn't see them and they couldn't see me.
Absolutely.
Being able to see people face to face in real time, see their reactions, see their smiles, their sadness, their whatever. I think that's important and that's really helpful.
Absolutely.
Harsh, let's talk about circadian rhythms. And if you would just kind of explain to people who may not know what we're talking about there about circadian rhythms, what they are, and their effects in aging.
Absolutely. So circadian rhythms are this really interesting concept. And many times whenever we think of our circadian rhythms, we just kind of think of our sleep-wake cycle. So,
Right.
I get sleepy around this time, I wake up around this time. And so one thing that I had the opportunity to learn about from actually one of the experts in circadian rhythms was just how important they are in our lives and how they control so much of what we have to do. And so that's why if we sleep 2 hours later than we usually do, but we still wake up at the same time, we have this like feeling of weight kind of weighing us down. We feel a little foggy, we feel a little groggy, and all of that can start to weigh on us. But as the research has recently shown, there's actually a lot that happens with circadian rhythms and aging. And so I know a lot of people think of with aging, I just need less sleep and things of that nature. And many times that's not necessarily true. Many times it's just kind of the decaying of a circadian rhythm. So you are getting used to taking in light at night. So one thing that can make your circadian rhythm a little off track is if you start seeing a lot of light at night, because it tells your body that, it's still bright outside, don't get ready to sleep yet. And so that can confuse the body's rhythms. And so recent research has really shown that there's actually a huge role of circadian rhythms in dementia. And so they say that if your circadian rhythm is strong, that basically lowers your chances of dementia as well as lowers the severity of it if you have dementia. And so if you're ever caring for someone that has dementia or if you're caring for someone, or even if you have it and you're like partially aware of it, the ability to build strong habits is absolutely crucial. And so that's why circadian rhythms research is starting to play a bigger and bigger role in a lot of this, where if we are able to help people just sleep and wake up at the same time every single day, that small singular thing can really help fight this construct of a disease that a lot of us really struggle to even grapple with, like what is dementia? And so I think circadian rhythms and aging is actually a really huge topic that's going to continue to be explored, but we know quite a bit about it already.
Mm-hmm. So is there any kind of technology that helps us do that?
Yeah. So in terms of technology, so one of the biggest things that people use for circadian rhythms is a natural awakening alarm. And so rather than an alarm that produces sound, you use an alarm that basically floods your room with light. And so while it's beneficial to sleep in a completely dark room, if you wake up to the feeling of a natural sunrise, that actually helps you entrain your circadian rhythm, which basically allows you to kind of get it on track. And so that's one thing. Another thing that we're working on at Brio Care is actually using a little bit of artificial intelligence to actually measure how and when people are interacting with Brio Care, just interacting, getting up, and then slowly making small adjustments and suggestions to help people find and entrain to the perfect circadian rhythm for them. Because as everyone knows, some people are morning people, some people are afternoon people, some people are night people. And so it's important to not just have a one-size-fits-all approach, but actually understand what kind of person someone is. And then based on the type of person they are, you're able to build a system that allows them to actually get and strengthen their circadian rhythm.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about using science. Well, you just did talk about one way. What is another way we can use science to make those small behavioral changes in our everyday?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think whenever it comes to this topic, it's really important to have a even simple understanding of kind of how our brain and our neurons work, which are kind of like our brain cells. And so these cells are really fascinating little creatures because there's actually a lot of research that shows how habits are actually the strengthening of these connections. So if we have two brain cells and we have a habit that connects them, it actually strengthens that connection. And so that's why whenever we build habits, we don't have to think about it. It's effortless. And that's because those connections are so strong. So many times you don't even think about getting out of bed, going into the bathroom, doing your daily ritual, and then exiting. It's just something that you do. And so small behavioral changes can really be small things like exercise, right? So as people age, exercise is a huge important factor in it. But is it good to just do exercise whenever you find some time? Or is it better to find an hour of your time, just time block it, and just go on a walk, do some yoga, do just small things that allow you to build these habits. And so after a few weeks of doing it, it's second nature. And so this second nature not only reduces the effort it takes to do something like this, because whenever something's a habit, the effort goes away. And many times the hardest part about exercise is the effort it takes to start the activity. And so just small changes like that can really help us live stronger, more connected, and more fulfilled lives where we're doing hard things without the effort to it. And so it's a lot of just habit related stuff, but these habits are very much based in neuroscience.
Yeah. So let's talk about social engagement. Now that's a biggie, especially with people with dementia, but for all of us, social, like I said before, we're social animals. We just are. We're not meant to be loners. Some of us may gravitate a little bit more that way. We may be more introverted than extroverted, but we still need other people, right?
Absolutely. I think this is a thing that I care very deeply about because I've seen this firsthand, especially whenever I first started out in aging, and just seeing how people, whenever they're lonely, it really affects them on multiple spheres. I think the first sphere that I immediately think about is kind of the humanistic approach to it, right? Like as a human, if I feel lonely, it does not matter what I accomplished in my life, because in this moment right now, I have no one to share it with. I have no one to talk to. And I think that feeling is so dangerous. I know this, there's this quote that's being thrown around everywhere, but loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes in a day in terms of health. And so I think all of these little things are very important. And then on top of that, there's a recent study that showed that 80% of health outcomes actually come from and are based in basically these social determinants of health. And so not necessarily genetic, but do we have a good support system? So if something goes wrong, we have people to talk to about it. And so just these small things really show the importance of being able to engage with people consistently. And so a lot of the work that I do is actually really engineered around how do we change the perception and really make it as easy as possible to keep people connected as they age, as they start to face different stereotypes and stigmas that come with aging. I think being able to really address those in a way that is not dehumiliating, I think is really important, because it's so easy to make someone, as people age, there's so many little things that we do that we don't even think about that are actually very much rooted in ageism and things of that nature. And so I think social engagement is absolutely crucial. Do you have any, it seems like you really
valuing people's life lessons and life experiences, and helping them, I think that can go a long way to combating a lot of the effects of aging. I think everybody needs to feel that they can give value no matter what their situation is. I can remember my mom, the last couple of years of her life, she was completely bedbound. She was on hospice. They had given her a month to live. She lived almost 2 years. But she was completely bedbound. She couldn't do anything for herself, really. I mean, she could feed herself when I brought the food to her, but that was about the extent of it. She spoke some, not always. So she was challenged, but she wanted to participate. So if I was folding laundry, she wanted to help. And, at first it was like, oh, I'm not going to make my mom fold the laundry. She's in bed. And then it's like, no, she needs to do that. So I would hand her some of the towels. And of course she would, they were a mess by the time she finished. I had to go in the other room and redo them, but that's okay. She wanted to participate. I also realized when Christmas came around, she and I used to always cook together. We used to bake. That was our thing. And I told her I was going to bake. Oh, she wanted to help. Well, she couldn't come into the kitchen. She didn't want to come into the kitchen, really, but she wanted to help. So I brought the cookie dough to her and let her sit there and roll them and make the cookies. And then we'd put them on the tray, and I'd bring them in there and cook them, and then bring them back, and she'd put the sprinkles on or whatever. And it made such a difference. It really, really did. And that's when I realized that we all just want to feel that we have some value left in our lives. And I know when I see older people who are very lonely and very disconnected, a lot of it is because they don't feel that they have something to give. And that nobody values what they do have to give. So I think finding ways to help seniors give back. And I think technology can really jump in there and help with that. What do you think? I see you shaking your head. You've got some ideas rolling around. I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think your example is a prime example of how many times as we see someone age, like if we have a grandparent or a parent that's aging, and we can start to see them decay a little cognitively, or they like their physical abilities are starting to decay. Many times it's really easy for us as people that care about them to try to reduce their responsibilities or reduce the number of things that they do so they can just relax. But the reality is, so many times that is actually the thing that pushes them towards that decay more, because now they start affecting their own self-esteem. They start affecting their own ways to contribute. They start doing less. And just even from a scientific perspective, like if you don't have that stimulus to do things and have that deeper level of fulfillment, then it's very easy to continue this like process of decaying. And so I think that part is really interesting. And I'm definitely with you on this social engagement component of technology. I think one of the best things that technology has done is it's made it super easy to capture information. So it would never be this easy for a 75, 85, 90-year-old woman who lives in Texas to start a cooking channel. But now she can just take her iPhone and start a cooking channel. And this level of even having 100 people watch that in a week would bring so much fulfillment, because
oh my gosh, yes.
It's just, I was able to educate 100 people on this particular recipe, and others found it valuable. And that's why they came and watched the whole thing.
Right. And there's so much value that each one of these people have. They're, like I said, the life experiences. Wow, I wish I had my dad back, because he had so many rich life experiences, and he died way before technology got really going. He was, 2005, and we were able to capture some, but not really like we can now. It's beautiful. And so I implore people to get out there and start capturing that. And that will actually help somebody who's aging. If you go to your granddad or your uncle or whoever, and you say, hey, would you mind if I videoed you about such and such that happened in your life? Because I really want to hear this story, and I think other people will learn a lot from it too. How do you think that's going to make him feel? Wow, I'm valued now. Wow, somebody values me and sees that I did contribute to society and I did contribute to the world, and my life wasn't for nothing.
Right.
And I think that's important. Yeah.
Absolutely. And to like push that a little further, right? Like so many times, this is one of the hardest things that I've seen is as family members, we love our loved ones so much that it is very easy to feel like we are the best people to interact with them. But one thing that happens is as you you engage with your loved ones, one thing that it's almost like a rut that we fall in where we ask 3 questions. How are you feeling? What did you do? And what did you eat? Yeah. Like those 3 questions are the ones that we go through. And we fail to go back to these like vivid memories that they have that if we ask about, they'll just go on for hours. And that's exactly what we want them to do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, that is so true. Those 3 questions. And my mother-in-law used to always say, I ate a sandwich. Every day it was, I ate a sandwich. It was like, I know she didn't eat a darn sandwich every day. She had to have eaten something else. But you're right, but when we engaged her and started talking about, wow, you took a trip to Japan. Tell us about that. Wow. And Harsh, you have frozen on our screen.
No.
So if you don't come back, you may have to refresh your screen, or you may have to go out and come back again. Yeah, you're frozen on the screen. Okay, he's gone out. He'll be right back in just a few minutes. And we're going to talk about the role, technology, and here he comes. There we go. So technology it's not perfect. It has its glitches, and you just go with it.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit more about the role technology can play in aging. We've got a lot of new things on the horizons. Driverless cars are not quite here yet, but they're coming. They're getting better. That's going to be a biggie, because giving up the car keys is something that happens to a lot of older people, and that is independence. I mean, I like to know that I can just jump in my car and go wherever I want to go, even if it's just down to the corner store. Right. I can do it, and I don't have to ask somebody to take me. Right. So having that ability to have driverless cars is going to be huge. Just having Uber has made a change. Just having the ability to pick up groceries at the grocery store for somebody who has severe arthritis, and maybe it's hard for them to get around the grocery store and reach up on those top shelves to pull something down, and being able to order online and then go and pick them up. That's made a huge difference. And of course, during COVID, it's made a big, big difference when people were asked to and needed to stay socially isolated in their homes for a while. What else? Do you see robots? Do you see robots coming in on the picture? I see robots. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is where the question not only becomes like, what can technology do, but what are the pains that we have with aging? Like, what are these different challenges that we're looking to address? For example, for someone that's struggling to cook, or like is more likely to leave the gas on and things like that. And as a caregiver, you don't want to have to always call your mom to make sure that she was able to leave a gas on. Having even the smallest things like reminders that just go off in your house. It's like, oh, make sure you turn off the stove. Just small things like that make a huge difference, because as you said, it connects back to this independence component of, oh, I can stay in my home. I think we're making a huge shift towards home healthcare, or just home care, or because everyone wants to be able to age in place. It's very uncomfortable to have to drop everything in the life that you used to live in order to live in a place where many times you feel irrelevant. And so I think there is this shift towards this. And so the question becomes, what are the small challenges that people may start to see, and how can we help them? So I think robots have the potential to help out, but it might be even easier than that. I was looking at a company that makes smart pill medication boxes that tells you exactly how many pills to take on what time and what compartment they're in. Just like small things like that. And so robots are fantastic, but a thing like that is great. A lot of times it's just a small reminder that we need. And so one thing that I find myself trying to really push for in a lot of the organizations that I'm working with, especially in Brio Care, just because we have this technology component, is what are the most important things that help restrict independence and really start to make people feel isolated, and how do we start focusing on that? And so I think if people can just call their loved one with their voice, or their loved ones can leave them a message with just their voice, and they're able to hear it rather than it necessarily be fully through their phone or something like that. Things like that really can change the way that we live our lives. And so I think I'm really excited for some of these smaller things that really don't feel like it's completely changing the way that we live our lives, but it allows us to just continue doing what we love to do.
Well, things like Alexa and the Google Hub and things like that. I know older people that just get the biggest kick out of the fact that they can go into their Google and say, hey, Google, are you awake? And Google will yawn and say, oh, I'm getting up now, or something like that. And they get the biggest kick out of that, because it feels that human interaction. And then they can say, hey, tell me a joke, or give me the news, or whatever. And even though there's nobody right there, it's a human voice that's interacting with them. And that makes a difference. It's fun. And it helps keep them engaged when there is no true human around to fill that gap. And like you said before, I think we need both, but we all know the reality of the situation is that younger people cannot always be there to care for somebody when they're older. They have lives that they have to live. They've got jobs that they have to do. And, that's just the cycle of life. And so how do we keep our loved ones engaged and happy and contributing? And I love your idea of the older lady doing a cooking channel. I got to talk to my sister. She is a great cook. And she's pushing 80. She'd kill me if she heard that, but she won't be there till December, but that would be an awesome thing. I know with her, what's made a huge difference is volunteer organizations. And they have had a challenge because of COVID. Most of the volunteer organizations have not been able to have the gatherings that they usually have to get their volunteers together to do whatever it is that they're going to do. So she worked with a lot of dementia patients at something called The Gatherings that Care Partners puts on. And unfortunately, that's not happening. But Care Partners is coming up with some innovative ideas and ways that they're still engaging some of those volunteers to help families do gatherings at their own home, and they're bringing them bags of goodies to do the activities and things like that. So yeah, volunteer, using technology to get those volunteers together when they can't connect in person. All of those things are great. Yeah,
absolutely.
So we are actually a little bit past time, but you were such a fascinating guest and you had such fascinating information. I didn't want to leave that out. I want to now put up the websites. Let's start with Create Circles.
Absolutely. So Create Circles website is www.createcircles.org.
Okay, so I'm putting that up on the banner right now, createcircles.org. And then you also talked about Brio Care.
Absolutely.
So Brio Care, what is their website?
Yeah, Brio Care's website is BRIOcare.us.
Okay.
And we're really trying to make a big push for Brio Care right now, just because we know how hard it is for so many families with COVID and everything, just because even there's so many challenges with remote caregivers and all of that. And so we have a couple special offers going on and things of that nature. And so if anyone wants to check it out, it's a great opportunity to just start doing and getting accustomed to these small things that difference in moving forward.
Great. So briocare.us, and I'm going to spell that out again, BRIOCARE.us, and I'm spelling that out because this is going to go on a podcast after.
Fantastic.
Okay. Harsh, this has been just absolutely wonderful. I know I'd like to have you back another time because there's probably tons of things that we could talk about. But I really thank you for taking the time today and being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to someone who's so passionate about just kind of being able to share all of these different ways that we're able to just live more fulfilling lives. And so it was an honor, Katherine.
Thank you. All right, everybody. This has been the Life After 50 show, sponsored by FindHoustonSeniorCare.com. And we're glad to have you here. We're going to take a little hiatus next week because the grandkids are coming and I'm going to take a break. But I'll be back the following week and we've got another fantastic guest. I won't tell you about it. You have to tune in. So I'll see you in 2 weeks on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. Thanks again.